Welcome back to a brand new episode of NH Unscripted, where we are just like an old-fashioned love song. I am your three-dog night-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Taj Mahal-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. My God, it's cavernous in here. You know the drill. I got my Nehru jacket on, my bell-bottom pants, my platform shoes. Break out those transistor radios. Flip on over to 1450 AM, 103.9 FM. Those are Concord-based. 101.9 FM for the beautiful, beautiful souls in Manchester. God, we love you down there. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL because we're cool. That's why. And I'll tell you what goes on out there in just a little while. Normally, this would be where I plug our sponsor. We are so grateful for Shaheen and Gordon, the law offices of Shaheen and Gordon in Concord, for sponsoring this show, which should be an award-winning show, I might add. That's a rabbit hole to go down for later. However, this is Shaheen and Gordon Friday. That means we have a guest from the actual palace down there, and we're going to bring him on in just a second. I did see some information. I do a little bit of homework once in a while, and I did want to say congratulations to attorney Anthony Carr, who has been named to the Union Leaders 40 Under 40 list for 2025. Yes, an achievement, an achievement. All right, because everyone should know a good lawyer, Mr. Bill Christie, is in the house. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's always good to be out of bed, isn't it?
Hey, 11 o'clock. I figured I could show up.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You are a partner over there, are you not, at Shaheen and Gordon?
I am.
What does that entail?
Well, it means that you have responsibility for your own cases. You have responsibility for others working with you, younger lawyers, things like that, and also, responsibility for managing the business. And making sure that everyone's behaving appropriately in the business.
Interesting. How many partners are there?
Oh, we got about 20 or 23 or 4 right now. We just added some more, so I've lost count. We're growing.
Have 20 partners?
Yeah.
Partners, not including all of the other attorneys?
No. We've got something like 60, 65 lawyers now. We're really on the move.
Are you guys anything like Suits? You ever see the TV show Suits? And that is not how law works. I'm
not. I don't watch Suits. My assistant is a diligent observer and watcher of Suits. She keeps me updated. But I don't even know what network it's on. I liked it when everything was on Netflix. Now you have to take 5 minutes to figure out which streaming service something.
And there's still nothing good most of the time anyway. So are you all located, all of the partners, in Concord?
Nope. We have offices in Concord, Dover, Manchester, Nashua, and that's our main locations. We have offices now in Keene and up in soon to be in Lebanon as well.
Really?
Yep.
How does this is just a side. I get on so many tangents. How does a law office determine where they want to be? Do you look and go, there's a lot of crime in that area, dude, we're heading there?
Well, you can't advertise for crime. Okay. You can't say if you're interested in committing a crime, we're in your town.
Oh.
But it's we're a little unique in that we have practices that service both companies but also very individual based, and we find that a lot of individual-based clients, whether they're looking for a criminal lawyer or a personal injury lawyer or even a small business, they like to see people in their community, right? And so it's helpful to be in those communities and to find people that live in those communities that clients can relate to. And that's really been a secret of our success.
Interesting. I think I saw Well, you guys attended a job fair the other day at UNH, I think?
Oh, yes, we did. Yeah. I wasn't there, but yeah.
So you're looking to hire more? You don't have 100's not enough or 200's not enough? You're out there scraping for...
Right now, it seems to never end. It's sort of like it's like anything, right? I'm sure any business or small business or smaller business, you're like, can we... If we hire this person, is it going to be enough for them to do? And then, before you know it, you need someone to help that person. And so we've been really fortunate. And I think that for, business, a law firm like us or other businesses that are entrepreneurial and growing. There's a lot of opportunities out there. We've been fortunate that it's just ongoing right now.
You want to throw in so let's talk. So if you are an up and coming attorney, head on over.
We need help.
There you go.
Call me.
ShaheenGordon.com. That's the website. What's the phone number?
In Concord, it's 603-225-7262.
That's the business right there.
Yeah.
The interview's over. So what is your particular field of? You have multiple, according to what I saw, right?
It's evolved over time. You know, I'm not going to say unless you make me how long I've been practicing, but it'll
slip out.
It's right now. I focus on a mixture of litigation type stuff. I do civil litigation, which is representing clients and businesses, what have you, in court and civil cases. I do criminal defense. And I also do a lot of election law in the state. New Hampshire is a very political state.
Yep.
And our election laws are a sort of a jumble of a patchwork of different laws that have been put together over the years. And I do a lot of election law. So every 2 years, I'm very busy with that type of stuff as well.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
Are they just archaic and you got to or are they because there's new ones coming all the time that are trumping some of the other ones?
It's like a patchwork. It's sort of like the way New Hampshire likes to do things is basically, an issue comes up and then someone files a bill to address that issue. And, over time, there's laws that don't necessarily agree with one another or what did they mean when they adopted, they make you have to sign this affidavit to vote. And does this conflict with that law? And campaign finance has changed a lot with money in politics. So it's quite a complicated patch of work right now. And somewhere along the line, I learned it. And so I may be the only one left that bothers to study it. But I do a lot in that area. It's actually very interesting.
He said it's very interesting.
A lot of late night phone calls when you do election law. Like, I have a report due tomorrow, and I think I missed this. What do I do? There's a lot of advice like that.
All right. So I saw out at the website. It says that you just said that you were chair of the firm's litigation practice group. It says you concentrate in areas of complex civil litigation.
Yes.
As opposed to what? What makes it more complex than any other? How does that term fit in here?
Well, I mean, it sounds really self-important, right? I do complex litigation, but it's what?
Well, I do complex radio.
Yeah, I'm sure. I know. I mean, look at us, right? It's like what that means is, a straightforward case would be sort of like, your neighbor comes onto your yard, trips over your rake, and breaks his arm and sues you over that. That's a simple, straightforward case, right? A complex case would be, let's say you got a case involving. There's a business dispute over a contract, and there is multiple parties involved in that case, and a lot of witnesses and experts about both on liability and damages and all of that. That is sort of complex litigation, and that's the type of work I tend to do these days.
Do you lean personally towards? Is there an area that you prefer that you really enjoy a lot that? You're like, oh, great. I can't wait for that case to come in.
It's interesting because one thing that's great about being a lawyer is that you learn about a lot of different types of businesses or a lot of types of people. The type of case I really like is when, something comes in that's like a totally new area, like a new business, like
AI.
What's that?
Like AI.
Something like that. Or like I did a case involving, two telecommunications companies a couple of years ago, which I knew nothing about, and I know nothing about now because you forget everything. But I really had to learn about that industry and learn about the contract that was at issue in that case and why it was so important to the companies and to the end users and why this stuff was important, how it worked, and that's the type of thing that's interesting when you get something like that in a new subject area. Or, about 15 years ago, I represented this leasing company. This company did finance for leases. So like you walk into a Subway or something like that, all that equipment in there is leased.
Yeah.
And there are these private companies that fund all that. and I was involved in a dispute between two of the big funders representing one of them, and that was a really interesting whole world I knew nothing about. So that's what's interesting about practicing.
Gotcha. Hang on just a second. Ooh, I knew I was happy to get out of bed. You are listening to NH Unscripted. Yeah, you are, baby. Not quite Mr. Bojangles, but I am like your nitty-gritty dirt band-like host, Ray Dudley, and we are coming to you from the spa-like conditions of the WKXL studios deep in the heart of Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. Bill Christie's in the house from Shaheen and Gordon, and we got a lot to talk about. Be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted. Look, you've got your troubles. I've got mine. I am your fortunes-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the YMCA-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. My God, I can smell the pool chlorine from here. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM in Concord, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL, but I'm sure you knew that by now. Bill Christie, partner at Shaheen and Gordon, is in the house, and we're talking law. Law. I mean like real law. Bill, I'm looking at this sheet that I print out. Bill focuses on criminal defense and has obtained not guilty verdicts for clients charged with numerous offenses. And as I'm looking through the list, one of them is music bootlegging.
Yes.
How did you get involved in music bootlegging, and what was that case like? Tell me it wasn't Napster.
It was not Napster. It was pre-Napster, I think.
Pre-Napster?
So, you know, it's so common now, right? You go online, you go on YouTube, and
I'm denying I do any of it. Let the court.
Okay, not you. But people. You can get like live recordings from almost anyone these days, right? And or you can go online and download, or this whole like websites now that are like live recordings from various artists and all that. Going back years, you know, you can get like Bob Dylan shows from like the 60s now online and things like that. But not too long ago, that wasn't the case. And the record companies would really go after anyone who had a so-called bootleg recording, which were mainly recordings of live shows that were on CDs or available online or what have you, where they had not authorized the release of that record. Okay, so someone would go to, you know, Grateful Dead's a bad example because they always let people record their stuff. But let's say Tom Petty, and they would like record a Tom Petty show, and then it would be on a CD. And someone would go to like Market Days or something in Concord, and there'd be some vendor there selling a bunch of CDs of concerts or things like that, or maybe outtakes from a Beatles record or something like that. Well, I had a client that was doing that literally at Market Days in Concord, and they had all these CDs.
Selling them out of the back of their car?
Yep. And then they were charged by here in Concord, New Hampshire, for violating this music bootlegging law. And so there was a big dispute over whether these recordings were authorized or not and what the source of the recordings were. And it's actually a really, highly technical area of the law, whether something's recorded, authorized or not.
Yeah.
And we had that case here in Concord, I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago or so. And, we ended up winning the case totally, that the state couldn't prove that these recordings were unauthorized. And so that was a real interesting one. They actually flew someone in that case, now I remember, who was some agent or someone from the publishing company that owns the Beatles catalog, who testified regarding that there was some Beatles record or something like that, I remember, and they testified whether or not this was an authorized reproduction of that recording.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine back then, of course. now they've got metadata and all this stuff that's built in, I can imagine.
Right.
But how would they even know back then? I mean, if you had a DVD recorder or a CD recorder, we were all could have been doing it. That's amazing that they would bring somebody in of that stature.
Yeah, there was a real push at some point where, I think the record companies were really trying to push back against people's ability to record things, download music on their own, and have control over music on their own. And they thought that was going to end up costing them money, right?
Royalties and all that.
Right, the royalties and all that. They've obviously surrendered over time or adapted, and now it seems to be their approach is to just throw that stuff out there themselves so people don't have to download or quote-unquote bootleg or what have you. But at the time, it was a real fight. And, one of those cases came here, and that I was fortunate enough to get involved in it. And that's an example of what I was talking about earlier, where you get involved in something, you know nothing about it to start, but you learn about it, and you learn about, all the personalities in the industry and how it works. And that was a case we tried here, I can't remember when, but it was.
So eventually that would be a case then, since it's like one of the first, you would be the law that people reference later, right? Is that true?
For New Hampshire, it was cutting edge.
You'd be I think, based on Christie and whatever,
Yeah, I'm sure there's cases like that were litigated in like New York and L.A. and things like that. But at the time, it was a first for New Hampshire, and it was like the court. The court was struggling with these issues, and and we raised a lot of in a case which you can file like what's called a motion to dismiss, where you try to get rid of a lot of the case. We were successful on that, but we did have to try about 5 or 6 of the CDs at issue, and the one I remember specifically is the dude from the Beatles, and he was a nice guy, but it's they couldn't prove that the recording that was being sold was not authorized.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That whole copyright area is just insane. I throw out these little ditty things on the intros and outros, and believe it or not, I go out, I throw my stuff out there into some podcasting area. It ends up on YouTube, and I get all these little copyright notices saying there's information on it, it's copyrighted. The artist says it's okay, but we're just making a note on your podcast.
Well, that's a big fight that's coming. I'm not an expert in AI by any stretch of the imagination, but that is a big fight that's coming with AI. When people go into one of their, devices and say, write me a little story for my kid or whatever, and or help, and a story pops up that they can then paraphrase for their kid. There's like disputes brewing that you're actually that the AI is stealing from other like children's story out there or something, and
because it goes out and scans and pulls that information in.
And so that's a big fight that's coming down the line with AI. So be careful.
You going to be on that one?
If maybe, we'll see. It's like,
well, I would imagine there'd be overflow too. For back then, VHS, people were copying VHS tapes and all of that. You can go in any seedy little video store, and there's racks full of stuff that. Oh,
and I remember being in college or law school, what have you, when you'd be watching some movie on someone's VHS. It was so faded because it had been taped over so many times. It was like, it was ridiculous. It's the young people today have no idea the burdens we carried, having to deal with VHS.
I miss the old days.
And not digital. It's
You have so many great things here, like tax evasion, embezzlement. These are fascinating areas for me that I would guess that they're fascinating to you because you took them on. But
yep.
The embezzlement, is that corporate embezzlement, I assume? Yeah,
usually what you see is there's various types that I've handled. A lot of times is usually, you have the bookkeeper who starts skimming from the business for whatever reason, or you have someone who's a corporate officer that's taking money from a business for whatever reason, and that starts to accumulate over time, and then at some point it gets found out. Usually there's some audit, or enough money's missing that other people start asking questions. And then, so those cases can be really interesting because oftentimes, especially in a smaller business or a smaller entity, you get into a whole dispute about whether it's authorized or not. Well, yeah, I took money out, but they said I could. And there's a whole dispute over that sometimes. So,
man, oh man, what's on your plate now? What hot button are you particularly invested in at this point?
We just came out of the election season, so I was doing a lot of stuff with the election cycle in 2024, which was.
Did it get resolved? A lot of what you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of there was anticipation that the results of the 2024 election, there was going to be a lot of dispute and litigation after the election, but considering the outcome, the side that people thought would be disputing didn't dispute anything this time, right? So that kind of died out. But there was a lot of work. Every 2 years or so, the election laws change, and you have to learn those and advise people about that. So there was a lot of that. So that was what was really hot for me last year.
All right. I'm holding on to the big story. Bill was involved with a little guy from the Winter Hill Gang down in Somerville. Ooh, baby, yeah, we're going to get into that. You are listening to NH Unscripted. We are going to blame it on the Bossa Nova. I am your Edie Gourmet-like host, Ray Dudley. We are coming to you from the Gong Show-like digs of the WKXL studios. I am not the unknown comic. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM in Concord, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls of Manchester. All right, we're coming back. Hear about the Winter Hill Gang. You are listening to NH Unscripted, where I know you are hooked on a feeling. I'm your BJ Thomas-like host, Ray Dudley. Yeah, coming to you from the Hollywood Squares-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord, where I love to sit in the center square, once held by Paul Lynn. Yeah, you dig that one up. 1450 AM, 103.9 FM in Concord, NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. In the house is Bill Christie, partner over at Shaheen and Gordon. He has, at what I understand to be, a very interesting story dating back to the Whitey Bulger days. Sir, what happened then?
So we were involved in a case. I was lead counsel in it. We represented a family whose their eldest son had been a sort of a hanger-on to the Whitey Bulger Winter Hill Gang, real low-level type guy. And he got involved in running guns to the IRA in Ireland in the mid-'80s.
I'm shocked.
And he's an Irish guy from Boston, right? And so he got arrested on coming back to Boston and when he was interviewed by Customs, disclosed that Whitey Bulger was behind the arms shipment to the IRA. Unbeknownst to him, Whitey Bulger and his partner Stephen Flemmi, who were the leaders of the Irish mob in Boston, were FBI informants.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, whenever someone informed on Bulger and Flemmi, the FBI in Boston would leak to them that, hey, somebody's telling the government about your wrongdoing, and they would go out and murder the person.
Huh.
And so, as plain as that, and so we were hired by the family to say, after his body was buried in a grave in Dorchester and was concealed for almost 20 years. They found the body one day, and we were hired to sue the government for that lawsuit. And at first, the government said that's outrageous for you to accuse the government of leaking an informant's identity. We would never do that. How dare you? They withheld documents in the case. They withheld key documents in the case. Finally, we obtained the evidence necessary, and we went to trial, and we won. and prove that the government was involved in that murder. I think it was the first time ever in the history of the country that it had been proven that an FBI agent had leaked the identity of an informant so that person could be murdered.
Okay, so there's a lot of levels going on here. At any point, were you apprehensive about going after the FBI or the U.S. government? I mean,
there were some weird things that happened about, during the course of the case. Like, you'd get a call from a potential client who would want to meet with you on some sketchy issue, and you wondered, is this real or is this some attempt to set us up? There were some of that, but I never felt concerned about dealing with the government or the FBI. But there was still some hanger-ons from the Whitey Bulger crowd who were still out there, and we had to deal with them a little bit during the case.
Yeah.
That was a little scary.
You get that 3 a.m. phone call, no one's on the other end.
But if you're standing in a parking lot in Boston and you see this guy who's killed several people walking at you in the middle of the day, and you're like, is it like, should I run? Or right now, that can be a little hairy at times.
Oh, my goodness. How many people ended up being on your team or whatever? Because I would think if you're going after the government, it can't be just you.
It was pretty lean. I mean, we kept it lean. There was me. I tried the case with Steve Gordon, one of my partners at Shaheen and Gordon. We had a paralegal, a couple of paralegals on the team, but we kept it pretty lean. It was which was probably not the way to do it, but I didn't know any better, and so that's the sort of the way we did it. And so it was a lot of work, and it's something that is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I'm glad I did it. I'm not sure it's something I'd want to live through again, though.
Man.
Yeah, it was intense.
Were you, I'm not even sure, but were you worried about even other family members perhaps being, how do I put this, touched by the...
No, not that, because enough time had gone by, and, Bulger was on the lam. He was still in the run at the time. Flemmy was in jail. But the way the government treated the family members who were simply filing the lawsuit and seeking justice was reprehensible. That surprised us. The government was just, horrible to them and, denied responsibility right up to this day. They've never accepted responsibility.
What, really?
Even
though you proved?
Other than paying the money, they've never accepted responsibility for what they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take you for that case? Because I know they'll drag their feet out and
We got the case around in 2000. I think we tried it in 2006. Then there were appeals. And I think the family finally got paid in like 2008 or 2009 or something like that. It was everything in that case was a fight. Everything. I mean, they withheld documents. They witnesses that wouldn't cooperate at depositions, and the DOJ lawyers in the case got sanctioned for withholding evidence and lying. We were awarded our attorney's fees. It was really a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, were there people following it, like the newspapers?
Oh yeah, it was a big deal in Boston, and there was national press about it as well. It was a big deal because the allegations. I mean, let's face it. Let's think if you're someone living in Concord right now, and you go to law enforcement and say, "I know somebody's committing a crime. You need to help me," and the reaction to that is they leak your identity to the bad guy so he can kill you. That's literally what was going on in Boston in the 70s and 80s.
So how does a law office in New Hampshire pick up a case that in Somerville?
We were willing to take the case. A lot of people in Boston were afraid to do it.
What?
We were
really?
willing to, yeah. I mean, the if you sit there and Whitey Bulger was a powerful guy. His brother was still. Not sure he was still Senate president at the time, but he was a very powerful politician at the time. Accusing the FBI of being involved in a murder, very hands off. People didn't want to do that. So, the family knew about our reputation, that we were not afraid to take on hard fights like that. And They were referred to us through another lawyer, and we agreed to take the case.
Man, oh man, was that your most notorious case?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing. I hope nothing would ever approach that as far as a notorious case or a case involving wrongdoing by either the government or by anybody else. I mean, it was the things that we discovered in that case. I mean, the government was involved in. It wasn't just my client, John McIntyre. There were at least 5 or 6 other informants who were murdered during that time frame.
Were all of their families now then, at once you started, were they like, can we get in on this? Was
Yeah.
it like yeah?
There were about 5 or 6 families that sued. We represented another family. We won that case at trial. Unfortunately, it got reversed on appeal based upon statute of limitations. They said the family came forward too late, which was an outrageous decision, which you've now angering me, and I'm going to, by reminding me of. And I'm not going to violate the FEC rule by talking about the case.
Okay, so that's the most infamous one for you.
Yeah.
Did your law office shy away from certain things? If somebody came to you and said, I have this strange case, does the law office, would you like sit down with like the other partners and go, this could really damage us if this goes sideways? Anything ever come up like that you would really, I mean, you're already talking about people in Boston who wouldn't take those cases.
I don't think there's any subject matter necessarily that we would shy away from if we thought that there was a good faith basis to investigate the allegation or there was an allegation. You know, I mean, I've talked about election law at Shaheen and Gordon. We're a Democrat leading law firm primarily, at least I am. You know, I don't think if Donald Trump came to me for a case, not that he ever would, I'd probably shy away from that one. That's the one.
Oh, you would,
that springs to mind. I might be worried about getting paid, but it's like, something like that that's sort of against sort of a lot of the other cases that we've done.
Yeah,
you know? So,
yeah. All right. I want to pick your brain just a little
Sure.
bit more when we come back. You are listening to NH Unscripted. I hope you all are enjoying this as much as I am. My goodness, we are your song sung blue, baby. I am your Neil Diamond-like host, Ray Dudley. Gosh, I love my job. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we come back. Shaheen and Gordon is in the house, Mr. Bill Christie. Questions arise. I'll be right back. Welcome back to NH Unscripted, where we are asking you to give me some good love, and I am your crazy elephant-like host, Ray Dudley, coming to you from the Green Acres-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord. Oh, you wanted rungs with that ladder? Mr. Haney, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM in Concord. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. You know what goes on out there? Let me tell you something. There's a button where you can click and listen live to anything going on 24 hours a day here at the station. But let's say, 2, 3 in the morning, you're like hankering for something. You can go out to the website. There's archives of what should be this award-winning program, but all the other great stuff that takes place here as well. And you can listen to your heart's content. Pass around that URL to all your friends. You'll be the hit of the next barbecue. Bill Christie's in the house, partner over at Shaheen and Gordon. I do want to say one more time, thank you for sponsoring our program. We really do appreciate that a lot. Bill's doing heavy lifting today. Everybody was probably expecting Jim Rosenberg because he's kind of been the face over here, but Bill's doing one heck of a job. Bill, what do you guys do over there?
Well, we're a full-service law firm. We do everything.
Meaning you don't Uber, though. You're not like delivering food.
Not delivering food.
Okay.
Not doing that. Maybe that's next year. I don't know. But I think what we do everything we do. We do business law, we do personal injury, we do family law, we do criminal defense. If you're school disciplinary proceedings, we have a wide range of lawyers who do a lot of different stuff. But I think what makes us different is that, for instance, we were talking about the Whitey Bulger case.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of firms, that type of case comes to you and the allegations seem so crazy or the mountain you got to get over seems so high that people would shy away from that. I don't want to do that work.
Yeah,
and part of that's
kidding.
probably how we got that case because firms in Boston didn't want to do it. But we're not like that. If someone comes to us with a problem and there's a way to deal with that problem, we work creatively to try to find a way to help that person solve that problem. So whether it's the Whitey Bulger case is probably the most dramatic example of that, at least one that I've been involved in. But we represent people who have partners that are representing people in these YDC cases where there's horrible levels of abuse that weren't believed 5, 6, 7 years ago, and now it's been uncovered, everything that's going on there. Or, we represent a college or high school kid who's in trouble about something and help them navigate that problem. Or,
Really? You would get that?
Oh, yeah.
That individualized? It doesn't have to be some kind
Oh,
of...
no. I mean, 5, 6 years ago, I did almost none of that work. Now I do a lot of it.
Really?
It's students or faculty. There's so much, the times that we're living in, I think there's so much, people are so agitated for whatever reason, and there's so much sort of accusations going back and forth against people that I think people often come to us now. They're really bewildered by, I have this problem. I don't know how to deal with it. What can you do? And whether it's a divorce case or a business or what have you. And we listen. We have a approach to things where we really listen to people's problems and try to figure out a constructive way to deal with that. Sometimes that means bringing a lawsuit. Sometimes it's telling people that's not the way to go. You need to try to resolve your issues differently. And whether it's through an agreement or something like that, I think we really provide that service in a way that's different than a lot of law firms in this state.
Interesting. While we're on the top, can you give out your URL again, the website and the phone number?
Our website is ShaheenGordon.com, ShaheengOrdon.com. And our number in Concord is 603-225-7262.
Perfect. I have been saying over the past few weeks and episodes that, honestly, if you walk this terra firma long enough, I don't know how you're not going to how you'll escape without needing an attorney at some point.
It's true.
I mean, or someone you know or love, someone very close to you. I mean, I've had to get an attorney for like just a will or a trust.
We do that.
I know. Right? So, I mean, there's bound to be something in this day. It's such a litigious era to live in that it would seem to me that you do workman's comp too, right?
We do.
Injuries and all that stuff?
Personal injury, workers' comp, trusts and wills, family law, criminal law, business litigation. We do all of that stuff.
So when your name comes up, Shaheen and Gordon, is there some moniker that people like, oh, I know them, they are this law firm. They're known for...
It depends. I think we're known as, I think, one of the leading personal injury law firms in the state. We have very good lawyers if you've been injured or hurt who represent you in those types of cases. We're also, I think, one of the premier firms in the case that does criminal defense. I mean, I do a lot of that. As does Jim Rosenberg, who's typically here.
Our man.
And or we do business law as well. We're known in all those areas.
I was talking to Jim last time. I forget what it was. Might have been off air, but I had asked him something about how difficult is it with not necessarily drugs, but you've got Vermont that okays marijuana, legalizes it. In Maine and Massachusetts, the state, ours does not necessarily. There's pockets where maybe a medical card will get you something. But isn't that impacting how law here in New Hampshire as well?
Huge impact. It's one of the unfortunate things about New Hampshire is this little bubble where, marijuana is decriminalized but not legalized. And,
right.
And you have people, I've represented students, professionals, doctors who come to New Hampshire. Let's say you have some doctor in Massachusetts who, where marijuana is legal, comes to New Hampshire on a ski trip and gets pulled over for speeding and has a pot in his car. He gets charged with a crime, and he now has a criminal issue, but a Board of Medicine issue because he's been charged with a crime, or a college kid, who's charged with a crime in New Hampshire from some other state. And suddenly they're dealing with not only the criminal cases, but the disciplinary actions and things that spin out of that. It is a major problem.
It's got to be a nightmare.
That New Hampshire's out of step with other states and other areas. It's the only jurisdiction in the whole Northeast, including Canada and all the surrounding states, where marijuana can still be criminalized at that level. It's a real problem that impacts people's lives.
I would not want to be a law officer pulling somebody over who has like gummies or something in their car and then have to make that decision.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of, that's exactly right. And you have people who are like, and they're asked, do you have anything in your car? And they go, yeah, because where they come from, it's totally legal, right? And suddenly you're arresting me because I have this stuff in my car? It's like, and it causes all these other problems. It really does.
So what's the typical result of that? I mean, obviously now they got to go through the court system, but do the majority of them end up with a record? I mean,
usually not, or they end up with some small fine or something like that. But they got to hire one of us to get out of it. That's not free, and. But, the other issue is, for instance, what I just mentioned, if you're a doctor, then suddenly you got to report to the Board of Medicine that you've been charged with a crime. Or you're a college student, and the school finds out you've been charged with a crime. They may do a disciplinary action. And with the cost of college these days, I mean, these things are really serious because you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars on an education, and suddenly you're charged with some sort of crime that could jeopardize your status at school. And so this fallout of that is really complicated. And the biggest mistake you see people make is they just go in, I'll go to court, I'll just pay the fine, and I'll get out of this. And then 6 months later, a year later, the letter comes from the Board of Medicine or the Board of Dentistry or what have you.
Oh, man.
You have a criminal conviction. What is this about? Or a college kid that we've discovered that you have a criminal conviction. And then those problems come down the line. So that's why it's really important, even this isn't just self-interest, people. It's really important, even on the simplest things. You should talk to a lawyer because the fallout of what can happen could be really serious down the line.
Hence the tagline, because everyone should know a good lawyer. Mr. Christie, the website and phone number one more time, sir.
Our website is ShaheenGordon.com. Our phone number is 603-225-7262.
Man, thank you for being here today. I
My
really
pleasure.
Appreciate that. You were listening, I have been, to NH Unscripted. I think we're alone now. I am your Tommy James, and the Shondells like host, Ray Dudley. Yeah, coming to you from the dating game-like digs of the WKXL studios in Concord, 1450 AM, 103.9 FM, 101.9 FM for the beautiful souls in Manchester. NHTalkRadio.com is our URL. We so are grateful to Shaheen and Gordon. Thank you, sir, for being here today. Thank you for sponsoring this show. We'll catch you on the next one.